Hey, I want to welcome you to session 3 of the Epreaching class. And in this particular session, it's probably going to be a shorter of the videos, and worksheet will be a bit shorter. I want to present to you a model that will help you put together your exegetical research and will help you get a little bit closer to doing your sermon. Now, the model, and I call it the 4-perspective model. That's not necessarily what the authors call it. It comes from a series of books, and I'll show you an image of the book in a second, called Feasting on the Word. And I've been using them for quite a number of years, actually, since they came out. Because what it does is it gives you 4 perspectives on the scripture. And they do have the 4 major passages that I mentioned earlier from the lectionary. They give you those. You can also, for like $15, download additional essays that were done on additional scriptures. Because a lot of times there's up to 6 scriptures for each particular Sunday. And I think they're very worthwhile, obviously, since, let's be honest, they're not cheap. They are in Kindle form, which is very nice. I do have them in Kindle form. I did have them in paper form. Gave them to a colleague. So let me go through the 4 perspectives. It starts, well, I shouldn't say it starts. Depending if it's paper or Kindle, the order can change a little bit. The exegetical perspective is an article that will talk about the general structure of the passage, give you some general ideas that are coming across. It's kind of a summary to some degree of the theological perspective and the homiletical perspective. I like to start reading, when I'm using these books, the exegetical perspective first, because it gives me a broad idea about what the passage could be about, how it fits in to the particular book, because you do have to remember that when you are reading a book of scripture, each book has an emphasis, each book has a theme to it. There's something that the author is driving at, because when you read the Gospels, even the 4 Gospels, you get a slightly different idea of who in Jesus was in each and every one of them. Then I move on to the theological, and as you know, the word theological means a study of God, and it'll give you some of the Christian approaches, Christian thoughts, Christian theology, if you will, for the passage that you happen to be reading. Bearing in mind that it does have a lot of church interpretation around it, but then again, that's what you're going for. Nothing wrong with that, of course. Now, the homiletic approach, or I should say perspective, brings the passage into, in this case, the year's 2016, takes it from its original place in history and brings it into today, giving you some ideas of how you can apply that passage to your sermon that you're about to give. What do I do with words that are 2,000 years old? Pastoral perspective is really good for finally putting your sermon together, because this is the application, if you will, of it. You can talk some history, you can talk some exegesis if you want. Please don't use those words, by the way, while I'm kind of thinking of it. Had a preacher working for me, and she used a lot of heavy church theological terms. She went to Yale seminary, so I had to sit down with her, and I said to her, if you're going to use big language, even the word theology, you need to turn around and define it for the people, because your people don't know these words. They're not used to those kind of words. So be careful with that, by the way. That's a sidebar. Pastoral perspective, again, will give you the understanding that you need to take this piece of writing that's 2,000, 2,500 years old and bring it into the present. And that's something that you're going to have to do. You've already hopefully selected a scripture that you want to do your sermon on. I gave you the open-ended ability to pick whatever you wanted. More than likely, you're going to pick something that favors you. I understand that. I could have said, here's your assignments. Good luck with them. I've done that in the actual class itself. I wanted to give you a chance. But when you're putting together that exegetical work, I call it the exegesis anyway, you should have these perspectives in mind. Now, if you don't have the Feasting on the Word books, that could get a little difficult. But it wouldn't be a bad investment, especially if you have Kindle. They're not that expensive under Kindle, to purchase the one that has your scripture in it. You can go out on the internet and do a search for the indexes for these books. And they do have feastingontheword.net actually does have a file you can download. I believe it's a PDF that I downloaded that will show you all 12 volumes and the scriptures that are in them. They do it by scripture. So they'll list all the scriptures from Genesis to Revelation, and then they'll show you which books they're in. Now, you have to pick a lectionary passage to make these things match up. So if you're going to pick a passage that's not going to be in lectionary, not going to find it in Feasting on the Word. So keep that in mind when you're out looking. If you have trouble finding the index and you write me an email, I will probably be very kind enough to send you the index that I have found and downloaded. But I'm sure you're all good with Google. If not, get your kid or grandkid to do it for you. But if you can't find it, certainly send me an email. I'll shoot it to you. If you don't buy the Feasting on the Word and you want to complete the worksheet, which I know you do, you can certainly go and Google these terms: exegetical, homiletical, theological, and pastoral. And you can write a couple of sentences, as many as you need, so just to show me that you do understand what these perspectives are. But if you're going to put a sermon together, you really need to go through these steps. I think that's the best way to do it. I start with the exegetical. I recommend exegetical, gives you an idea of the passage in the book you're dealing with. Then move into the theological, so you get the God language of it together. And then move into the homiletical, so you bring it forward to 2016. And then do the pastoral perspective. How are you going to use this knowledge that you now have to help motivate people to change their thinking and their way of doing things? Okay. Well, good luck on the worksheet. I'm sure you'll have fun with it. God bless you, and I'll see you in session number 4.